Hello, welcome to FEB UGM Podcast. I'm Handini Audita, and today we are diving into a topic that is reshaping classroom, university lectures hall, and the very definition of learning itself. Artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and dozens of others have landed in education like a storm. Students are now using them, and teachers are navigating them. Institutions are writing policies around them, and the question everyone is asking is, what does responsible use actually look like? So to help us work through this, from the ethics of AI-assisted assignments to the future of academic integrity and the digital divide, I'm thrilled to have with me today Dr. Michał Lemański. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, so Dr. Lemański is a senior lecturer in marketing at the Vienna University of Economics and Business. Dr. Lemański researches responsible businesses, digitalization, and the ethical dimensions of technology. He teaches ethics in marketing as part of Vienna's University Master in Marketing. And that is also a pathway for a program that you have, which is Marketing for a Better World.
Which is a very ambitious label.
It is. Very ambitious, but very good, though. So he does projects and research with economics of communion firms across the world. And he has published some work reviewing the early academic literature on ChatGPT across multiple disciplines. So Dr. Lemański, welcome to this podcast. It is genuinely wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Okay. So, Dr. Lemański, before we get into the big ideas, so I'd love to start with something that is very personal to you. Yeah. So when was the moment that you realized AI tools were going to fundamentally change how you teach and how your students could learn?
I think it was in December 2022. ChatGPT version 3 was published just on November 30th.
Okay.
And then we realized the power of generative AI. So I was working and experimenting a little bit with artificial intelligence tools before, but of course it was a big revolution. And I think it was a moment that many people realized the power and also possibilities. And I think, very soon, of course, students who are ambitious professionals, they started to use it extensively, experiment. So in the following months, early 2023, I think, a lot of people were already using it in different ways.
Okay. All right. So can you share with us like how those AI tools are used in Vienna?
So just like here and around the world, I think people are still experimenting and learning.
Okay.
So also those different AI technologies or AI-based technologies are developing very quickly. So initially it was about generation of text, now also pictures. So we can see much more beautiful presentations that students submit. Also the projects visually also are more attractive because that functionality is now widely available.
Okay. So when we say AI, what tools do you refer to?
Yeah, it's very important actually to say what AI is, because it's just so many different technologies, so many different tools have some AI-based functionality. Maybe you think, okay, if you use your search engine, like Google or Yahoo Search or any other, then that functionality is already built in, right?
Yeah.
Or if you are writing a document using a word processor, then also it's integrated. So even people who think that they're not using AI technology, they actually do without knowing it. So it's very well integrated already in many different tools.
Okay. So when you say AI, then it means that anything artificial that is integrated in many different tools that we know right now is considered AI.
So there are different AI technologies. I think most people think now about generative AI.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest revolution in education that came. But we now see an advent of quick development of agentic AI. So AI personalized assistants are now also working on our data together with us.
All right. Okay. So when we use AI in education, of course, like we want to aim using AI responsibly, right? So when we say responsible use in AI, what does that actually mean?
Excellent question. And I think, academic answer is that we are still learning
Okay.
what it is. So we live in those times that I tell my students that, maybe, 10 or 30 years later, people will know precisely what was right or wrong. At the moment, though we have some principles, we have some guidance, it's still difficult to say as those technologies are developing so quickly and people are only learning. And also the social norms for the use are only developing or clarifying now. So you referred before to my previous work. That was a project of Professor Casey Waters from Bond University in Australia, whom I joined to review the early literature on the ChatGPT and responses to it. And we could see maybe if we were writing this article now, probably would have seen also very different understanding of and different sentiments related to that use.
Okay. So there is a popular article in that is very popular in Indonesia. Maybe you might have read them. It's titled "ChatGPT is bullshit." So what they refer as bullshit academically is that ChatGPT and all the other AI tools that are available around the world are giving some kind of false responses or irresponsible output. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think, at least in popular conversations of what, pops up in conversations with colleagues, faculty members, and students is the two problems. So the first one, probably what you are referring to, is hallucination.
Yeah.
When you get answers which sound or look plausible, but are not,
Yeah.
are false. And here we have examples of, for example, students or even academics submitting work with references that do not exist, which are just configured or maybe made up by AI, because then if you think about, for example, large language models, in essence, it's an algorithm that is predicting the next word in specific context. So that looks like it's a good academic paper reference, but the problem is it just doesn't exist. And I've seen students submitting work with hallucinated references, or even PhD students or academics. So that would be probably the problem that you are referring to.
Yeah.
Second is that it's large language model again is predicting next word in a context. So it was trained on particular data. Sometimes it's simply impossible to give the answer. And there's a problem of on the side of developers of those technologies, because if you think from a client or customer perspective or user perspective, you give a prompt, you give command to your tool, and then the answer is like, sorry, I don't know. Then will you still be using this tool?
Okay.
Right? And there's another tool which always gives you an answer even if it's wrong. Right, so some of those technologies, I think, initially we could see that some of the tools which were saying, "Sorry, I'm a large language model. It's impossible, that I give you a true response to it," and they were just abandoned.
Okay. All right. But now we see that AI tools are like much wide developing, and then we already understand that the information that they give will be really based on what we feed them, the information that we feed them. So now I think there are a lot of practices where researchers, students are actually uploading papers that they already selected and they already perhaps pre-read, and then they upload them in their ChatGPT or in Claude in order to feed them information and ask a specific prompt to refer only to the papers that they have uploaded, and then to create a great paper from that afterwards. So from that practice, how do you see that?
So here the ethical problem is, of course, of copyright. Some of the content that is not available for free because the publisher holds a cost of processing, holding, and publishing, maintaining a paper on a server. Also, there's a big cost of editing papers. So those are commercial companies who the business model is to publish research, and they also need to be rewarded for it, meaning they are selling access to those papers. Now, if students are taking those research publications which are behind the paywall and submit it to large language models and they're used for training, then in many jurisdictions that would be illegal.
Okay.
So that's you don't have a right to use this text for that purpose.
Okay.
So that would be one of the probably biggest ethical issues. So then the output, of course, is better quality, much more reliable because it comes from actual research. But then the student or any user actually should check the settings whether this data is used for training of that model.
Okay. But in practice, usually those who uses those AI tools will not have the time or the willingness to read the terms and conditions, right?
Or even the awareness. But, ethics comes with effort, right? So to be good, you sometimes need to simply refrain from certain activities, right? Or not go the easiest way. So ethics requires some effort, thinking, also awareness building. So yes, I mean, I'm aware that it's a practice. So for example, a lot of students would submit to AI tools lecture slides, which are intellectual property of a professor or work of other students, right? We should, first of all, respect the rights of our users, our colleagues, and so on.
All right. Okay. Now, there's another problem with the use of AI. We can see that AI is now connected to many different tools that we are already familiar with.
Oh, yes.
Right?
It's well integrated.
Yeah, it's well integrated. Like if we open our PDF, now they have the AI tools to quickly read what that document is about. When we open PowerPoint, now we can create a PowerPoint with a single prompt, right? So the way that AI is actually integrated to our daily work tools, so how can we as a user differentiate whether we are doing our work ethically or unethically through those tools?
That's an excellent question. That
it's quite contradicting, right? When we upload them to ChatGPT, we know that we are maybe doing something wrong. But then what happened when we have the document, we want to read the document. But it's the tools that we have in our computer that is generating those AI.
So I think, the answer to this question is now, I think, work in progress. I think a lot of people around the world are trying to answer this question. There's more research, more understanding, more awareness. Also, the regulations are developing, clarifying, or changing. If you think, for example, about academic publishers and how they are amending the policies on the use of AI, or universities also change the policies on the use of AI. So in initial reactions, a lot of universities said, you must not use any AI tools. And then the following year, a lot of universities actually purchased license to some of AI tools for every student to make it more accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
So we're still learning. But, I think in terms of ethics, the ethical principles stay the same. I mean, if it belongs to you, you can use it, right? So if it's not yours, then you have to ask for permission, right? Just like, for example, think with personal data, right? Some of our doctoral students at our department did research asking people, would you pass on the telephone number of your mom to a stranger? And I would say, of course not, many people. And then why are you sharing all your contacts with, for example, AI assistant or in the digital tools? So that's a research of our colleagues which looks into some of those problems. So I think the most responsible way to deal with it now is actually to look into the conditions of use of the work they are submitting and think, do I have a right to do it, or do I have permission? How this data will be used? When I'm doing interview transcript, did my interview respondent, for example, agree that their sensitive personal data like voice was submitting to this particular tool? And it's very important because there's just so many different AI tools now developed precisely for privacy.
Yeah.
So if you want to be responsible, you can find ways to do it. The data stays on your computer, on the server, in your country, in this jurisdiction, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of responsible AI tools, and we can support them by using them.
All right. So this is where the ethics team in each university will take a role, where they will really learn about the ethics form that you distribute to your audiences, to your participants in research, right?
Yeah, so I think research ethics committee or international review board, institutional review board would probably need to look carefully how now AI is used for processing of the of responses of data of informants. But we've seen a great response also from students, from businesses, from governments, which try to basically develop more clear guidelines. And also, as I said, there are businesses which build a business model on ethics, ethical use of AI. So, for example, they inform very clearly what happens with your data, how it will be used, and give you different options. So, in a way that your intellectual property or your personal data will be processed in a respectful, ethical way.
Okay, yeah. And I think now AI tools like ChatGPT, even they have the incognito mode, like the privacy mode, where when we click on that, then they would not deliver access to our data to their whole program. So I think that's something that we need to build awareness upon,
yeah, as you said,
regards to-
check the settings
Yes.
and make sure that you process it in this. I mean, that's quick to learn.
Yeah, it's quick to learn, and I think all the AI tools now is facilitating that, right? Okay, and there are also several subscribed AI tools that are actually subscribed to other tools. Like, for example, what I know is like Anara. There is a research tool called Anara, where they have access to I don't know, like to all the publisher that is available, like to Taylor Francis, to others, yeah. And then what they do is that they can help us to learn which literature fits to this. So if an AI tools is actually connected and have a subscription over other tools that we usually learn, is that something that is acceptable in academic use? What are your thoughts?
I think there are plenty of tools now developed for academic use, specifically for science, for scholarly use.
Yeah.
So I think students would just need to see what's available to them, and again check the terms of use. But indeed, as you were saying, we see more understanding of what is ethical use of AI tools in education specifically, dealing with very specific problems, as you said, maybe transcription of interviews or analysis of messages or creating presentations and so on. So that comes the issues of related to intellectual property, for example, for graphics. It comes issues related to personal data like voice or names. It comes also some company secrets and so on, maybe financial information. So all those tools are, if they do not exist yet, then people working on it to develop to make sure that people's dignity, privacy is respected. And at the same time, we can increase really, use AI at its best and avoid the pitfalls.
All right. Okay. So, Dr. Lemański, you've published a review for ChatGPT, where you actually investigate many literatures across different disciplines. And what I read in that paper is that the sentiments that are produced is mostly negative sentiments towards ChatGPT. So we understand that a lot of academics have negative sentiments over these AI tools. But then what are the opportunities of those AI tools for education then?
Yeah, I mean, we need to consider this work in the context. So as I said, I joined the research of Professor Casey Waters from Bond University in Australia. That was about very early literature. So we specifically wanted to focus on specific model. I think at the time it was 3.5. So we have
exceeded now.
Yeah, precisely, with some capabilities. But it was about the first reaction. And indeed, we've seen, what we put in the title, it was a lot of skepticism. Maybe people suspected that there might be a lot of more ethical, I would say, damages done. And it was quite general trend across different disciplines of science. So that's why we compared publications from many different disciplines.
Okay.
I think, if we look at it today, and this is why this paper is cited so many times, because I think people are learning more and comparing how does it look like now? What did we learn from new models, for example, from different companies or even from OpenAI's own newer version that are so different and so much developed. But I think, in one hand, it showed something which is, we already know much about, that is the general resistance to change, or people are shocked if totally new technologies are developed. But after that initial, skepticism, people come to terms with new ways of doing business, with new technologies, new organizational models. It's just like here, it's unavoidable. It became part of life. It will not go away, at least not very soon. And so we also, and I think researchers also learned more about how to use it well, came to term. So I think this skepticism was necessary at the beginning to also to have this more careful approach. And we proceed with caution, but we're proceeding quite well.
Okay, all right. So can you share if AI tools in your university could actually bring productivity? Is there any practices that actually brings productivity to your students?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like we've seen it, I think, everywhere across the world. I was honored by invitation to meet your students, and I've seen fantastic project that you are working. So I was very impressed by the work that they have done using different AI technologies. So that was very impressive. And, that's a great example, how students can become more productive. I think we've seen a lot of productivity improvement, but what is more important that we've seen not only what, let's say, more traditional, classical, old-style tests, assignments, different tasks that students do. Now they can do so much more, and that is something we're still learning. That I think if I may speak, about myself, I don't think I still use the full potential of AI. For example, to give student tasks that were not possible, 3 years ago. For example, I'm thinking, just like you gave students a task to develop a new marketing strategy and content for social media with graphics and so on. Before, it was not impossible with a sustainable, with a substantial budget, for example. Right now, it is, and your students can do it maybe in a month. Right, so we can also ask students to analyze a huge amount of textual data or visual data, and this productivity improvements come here. So it's not only about doing old type of tasks. I think we've seen more productivity improvement when we actually give students new, different tasks in the future. And then use AI technology, especially, for example, when it requires analysis of unstructured data. So text, pictures, maybe voice, and other unstructured data that we can use.
But does it impact the learning experience of the students?
Definitely, so much new possibilities. I mean, it opened, right? So, for example, now without much knowledge of coding, you can have your own homepage.
Exactly.
Right? AI will guide you from beginning to the end how to do it, and someone without much knowledge of programming languages can make for example, a website and develop attractive content, both visual and audio and even video. Right? So as we are now speaking in May 26, that is something so easy to do that maybe 3 years ago people would not think about. So we've seen much improvement here. So many new opportunities, definitely.
Yeah. And do you find it as problematic when students now is actually very accustomed in using AI? They don't have the experience of doing it manually. It's really different to my generation, where we live or we study, we learn in the era where AI has not existed yet. So we have the experience of doing things manually. We have the experience of calculating a certain formula manually. We have the experience of building a website manually through coding. So that when AI comes, we know how to do it manually, but we just use it in order to make it faster. But students now, when they don't have the experience of doing it manually, wouldn't it be a problem, because then they don't know the process of achieving that output?
Yeah, I mean that's probably the at the core of a debate.
Yes.
At a lot of universities, but also policymakers for education would be looking carefully at precisely what you said. And I think the bottom line is which skills are gained and which skills are lost.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if we put it maybe in a wider context, we see that we as humans are so great at learning and adapting. Right. That's
Correct.
probably why we survived.
Okay.
Right? So we're great at adapting and learning. And not surprisingly, our students are learning very quickly. That's why our students, they want to go to the top. They want to be successful. They want to do something more than others, walk an extra mile. So they also have great intellectual potential. That's why at the university, after all, it's higher education. They achieve the highest. So not surprisingly, they are very quick in catching up, learning those new technologies. And of course, they learn a lot. They integrated it already very quickly. At the same time, maybe as you mentioned, some of the skills are not necessary anymore.
Okay.
Right? So you may think about your generation. I can think about my generation. Or like, in elementary school, I was programming in languages like BASIC or Pascal, right? Or C. I mean, I don't think it's a popular skill at the moment, right? You can ask any AI tool and it will provide you great code in many modern programming languages. So maybe some of those skills are lost, but at the same time, we see a lot of other skills are learned. But those are more technical skills. When we think about other problems of learning, like for example, will our cognitive capabilities, I don't know, not evaporate, but maybe diminish in certain ways. Or for example, people living in this generation, you can find out when AI tool that you ask for a certain answer is hallucinating, right? Or you can probably read an essay and see it looks like AI written and looks like human written. Because, as you said, you were writing those long essays or dissertations, papers yourself, word by word. What about the future? I mean, like, will people be able to distinguish or write themselves anymore? So there's a risk here that we might be too dependent on those tools.
Yeah.
There's a question: who will be owning, for example, those models? So will access be really always free and widely available? Will it be restricted? Can AI tools have integrated deception? And so on and so forth. So at the moment, you go online and have a free version of many online tools with AI capabilities. And you can just prompt them and get at least few answers per day.
Yeah.
At no charge. I think, we're at a school of business, so I think we can think, okay, maybe, in some future, for every prompt, you have to watch a small commercial or you have to do a small task, or maybe you need to pay. Right, so that there's a risk also of whether monopolization, might bring to the use of AI, and what will be the consequences for the skills, capabilities of people if we're becoming too dependent on some of them. It can be monopolized, and it can also, maybe stipulate specific answers or restrict certain answer that is given, and will be more control. So those are the potential risks that I see in this wider context.
Yeah. And I also see that dependency is actually very scary, right? Because I'm actually quite interested. Yesterday you mentioned that in Vienna you have an analog class. That's very interesting. Maybe you can explain just a little bit what an analog class is to the viewers.
Yeah, I think for people of my generation, you don't need to explain, but I understand we have a younger audience here from people from digital generations, digital natives. So that class was very much a response what was happening, what I've seen. So I'm not saying that it's an ultimate solution. It's just a nice addition. No, it's I think clicking well with the rest of the classes, which are so much digitalized at the moment. So technically, our university basically arranged one large room
Okay.
that doesn't have a screen.
Doesn't have a screen. Okay.
Yeah, so there's no PowerPoint presentation you can make.
All
but
right.
instead, we have like amphitheater type of, on the side of a room. There's a lot of movable boards where you can, whiteboards, you can write with using your hands and pens.
Yeah.
There's also pin boards when you can put some posters.
Yeah.
We even have mattresses and pillows, so students don't sit in benches. We have round tables, which are movable, and chairs as well. So that's basically a unique space. It's quite unusual because I think if you come to any classroom at university, you rarely see mattresses, for example, right? Or pillows that you can sit on. And you always see a screen, and there is no screen in this particular classroom. So that was an addition.
Okay.
And it was to some extent an experiment. I used the space provided by my university, and we did a course related to ethics. It was about responsible consumer behavior, when a lot of activities in class had to be in conversations, in teamwork, role plays. So on one hand, it was a lot of effort on the side of a student, because there's a lot to read in preparation. There's a lot to act in the class. There's a lot of interactions, and you need to be attentive all the time, and also be very open to others and interact closely with others. A lot of conversations, a lot of group work. It's a lot of preparation for a professor as well, right? Because to keep, especially young people attention for 8 hours for a whole day, it's you have to have good material for them to engage. But I think that is why I mentioned in our conversation. I think the most important was reaction during the first break or after the class, when students start coming to me and say, "Oh, it was so refreshing. People were looking each other into eyes. People were listening to each other." So I also went to the back of the room, and I've seen when one group was presenting, literally everyone was paying attention, looking at them. So there was nobody looking at the screen of a phone or a laptop computer. So again, that's not the ultimate solution. Also, what I did, I bought for every student a very soft pencil.
Okay.
So they could also write, because there's some research showing that if we write it down with our hand, it's different. We stimulate our brain differently than typing. So that was, from that perspective, it was also stimulating to take notes using a soft pencil, for example. So we would remember things maybe in certain contexts better. But it's only an addition, So when you take a lot of digitalized classes, online classes, and you also have this analog, this is extending. So just like AI is adding something and it's removing something as well, we have simply more options. So if we can integrate AI in education in a way that we minimize the losses and we expand the gains, that's probably the ultimate goal. Again, easy to say.
Easy to say, hard to do, Why I'm asking you that, Michał, is because I did an experiment actually on
I'm eager to listen, please.
On that. So I was teaching one class in undergraduate program, and we understand that undergraduate students are now more of the Gen Z students. When they are born, phones are already available. When they are born, the internet is already there. When they are born, like TVs, Netflix, and such is already there. So they are very digitalized in many ways. So I did an experiment. It was a course about design thinking, right? So like design thinking, you need creativity. You need the ability to think critically. And then I observed that in the first meeting, that when we lecturers have assignments and give them a certain simple task to do, they will type in their computer, maybe in ChatGPT or in Claude or whatever, and then they will give an answer. And then we understand that the answer is just so AI generated, right? So one day, in one meeting, I asked them
surprising people, right?
Yeah. I say that today we are going to do what I call, like Gen Z likes the word detox, like the word, that kind of thing. So I say, today we're going to have technology detox. We're gonna increase our creativity by detoxing ourselves from technology. So I ask students, please put all your laptop right in the front of the class. all your phones in front of a class. Today we're going to learn with flip charts. We're going to learn with pens. We're going to learn with pencils, and also the sticky papers. What's the word for that sticky papers? The colored sticky papers.
I'm hesitating to say Post-it because it's a commercial.
It's
company.
a commercial brand, yeah. I was gonna say that too, right? Yeah, but you know what I meant,
So
right?
sticky notes.
Yeah, the sticky notes. Yeah, we're gonna work on that. And then I observed it was just a 2-hour session, so it's a very short session. And then I observed that during that session, all their eyes are like going through the bags. They were anxious. People were sweating. And like in our classes...
I'm sorry to interrupt. So it means that you had a real detox, had the initial reaction.
Yeah, in many ways, it is kind of real
drugs.
detox. Yeah, it kind of feels like a detox. So I was actually quite surprised of the body response of my students. All those Gen Z, they were like, all that 2 hours, their eyes were like looking at their bags, looking very anxious. And you know how cold the AC in every classes we have, right? So it doesn't make sense if they're sweating because the room is hot.
So it was psychological.
It was psychological. It was purely psychological. And I found that kind of scary because then this is about digitalization. They are already very dependent and they are very anxious when they are not connected to that digital items. And then AI will be the next thing. Like perhaps when they are not able to use AI or when AI shut down, AI becomes more expensive, like the way you say it, then they becomes very anxious, not confident about what they think about. Do you think there should be a change on the way we teach because of that?
It's about the future, so nobody knows.
Is,
but
yeah.
I, by the way, I love your experiment, and I think it made people aware of their addiction, right, to certain tools.
Yeah.
So I'm aware that professional companies and organizations are doing digital detox.
Yeah, digital detox.
They take very high level executives and professionals who need it as well. So you did a free version for students. I think they should very much appreciate it. Maybe for some of them it was a wake up call, right? Maybe I should look into my daily habits and see whether this addiction, for example, my usage of different tools, it became an addiction. For learning, I think your students had excellent learning, so that was great. I'm eager to learn more about your experiment. Did you publish the results of this?
No,
experiment?
It's just a
You
simple.
should.
It's just a simple thing that but we should.
There's so many educational journals. You should share it.
Yeah. It's actually an interesting experiment to do. Yeah. We should publish that. And okay, so it's interesting how now Generation Z is very dependent to digital and then to AI now. So as a lecturer yourself, do you change the way you teach?
Of course, absolutely. I mean,
so what changed?
You would need to see my slides.
So briefly, if you can explain what have changed after the AI, what have you developed in your teaching?
I think on the positive side, the presentations that I'm making are more visually attractive.
Okay.
Now.
Yeah.
I think I'm saving time and with a lot of different, more administrative tasks that I was doing before. It's much easier. I think also in terms of research that I'm doing, preparing material for class, I can research so much more. So it's not only reviewing different databases, but I can use different alternative tools to find evidence, for example, or find models. And at the end of the day, I'm making my own decision what to include, but I see many different options I can choose from now. And it's also faster. So I think, I've seen a lot of time efficiency and also better quality of especially visual quality with material. What I'm trying to do, maybe it's a steep learning curve, but I'm learning to give more sophisticated, more advanced tasks to students.
Okay.
So what I'm preaching for, and I hope all of us will do, is we'll give more ambitious, we'll change a lot of tasks and assignment we give to students to use the modern tools. I think that's we're still, or myself, lagging behind. I can give students much more advanced tasks, and they can do it because they have different AI-based technologies, not only generative AI, but also different other kinds of AI technologies.
Yeah. Well, in my side, what I did is that whenever I teach, now I don't focus on the output, because like output, we can see that it can be produced through AI. But whatever the output is, what matters is the process. Like, how do you come with that? Like, for example, when I teach content marketing and then they develop a brand, like, why do you want to create that brand? That's the answer that AI might not be able to answer. And then if you make a content with the color palette pink, for example, why does it have to be pink? So that is the question that I keep asking my students.
It's a great question to check understanding.
Yeah.
And also stimulate the learning. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it is right now, although that digitalization is more advanced, AI is more advanced, it's actually also our homework as a lecturer to be more creative, to be able to stimulate the critical thinking of our students without being, what you call it, like without being feeling feeling stressed that, oh, I'm being tested by my lecturers. Like, we have to see like what way that we can see the critical thinking of our students without intimidating them, and feeling and delivering the feeling that they are being tested, right? So that is actually one challenge that I find very difficult to do during these times teaching. I don't know if you do.
Yeah, so like how we test, like for different, I don't know, learning outcomes.
Yeah.
It's becoming, like we need to rethink a lot of this, I believe. For example, even during activities in class, I noticed that, normally we'd say students who ask questions, they ask good questions, then we reward them with class participation points. But then, they generate those questions with popular AI machines.
Yeah.
Right. So is it really quiz question, or like you can prompt AI and tool and say, okay, please generate, give me 3 questions about this. That would challenge, and if you are good at prompting, it will come out. So even activity in class need to be probably, we need to review how we assess even that.
Okay. Right. So let's go back to academic integrity, right? So when we talk about academic integrity, so arguably we can see that the concern right now is that most students, like undergrad students, admits to submitting AI-generated work. Yeah, and it's becoming something natural. It's not a sin to do, right? And we also see that almost 95% of academics actually believe that AI is being misused in each of their institutions. So does that match with what you see in the academic dynamics right now?
I think all of us are sensing, even if we cannot prove it, we believe that, or we sense. Some intuition tells us that it's heavily used. Wherever it's misused, it's difficult to say. If you're saying misused, it means that you have no clear definition of what would be responsible, irresponsible use of AI technologies. And I'm not sure we really have, those answers. Meaning there's some clear area, of course, there's black and white, but there's some area in the middle we still don't provide students with guidance that would be good enough. On one hand, yes, we have the core principle. At the end of the day, if we look at it from that perspective, nothing has changed. For example, if you are writing an essay or any other paper, because you should just cite your sources. So this idea comes from me, and those ideas come from, and you have references.
Okay.
Right? And just like you were citing another scholar or maybe government report, you're now citing OpenAI's ChatGPT or different LLMs or different other AI tools. So in response to those. And we have some clear guidelines or how to cite it.
Okay.
Right? So it's a question of acknowledgement. It's a question also of creating open atmosphere when people would know, okay, it's normal. I'm even maybe encouraged to use those technologies. I should just be clearly informed how to cite it, how to make references. So that would solve a lot of problems what you maybe label, others label, misuse.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty much, fundamental ethical principles didn't change.
Okay.
We just need to reinterpret them to those new technologies, for example.
All
yeah,
right.
but in any case, I think everyone is using those technologies. The thing is, now even people who are not aware that they're using those, they do, because
Yeah.
they're so much integrated in
Yeah.
different software packages.
It is. Yeah, like what I say, like Word documents is also have AI. PDF also now have AI, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
well
so-
integrated. We use it whether we want or not, or we are aware or not.
Yeah. So we can see that universities now have rushed to deploy AI tools, like we have Turnitin that can perhaps detect the use of AI and la di da di da. But now we can see that it's like a cat and mouse dynamic here, right? So we build and develop on how to detect them, and then students also learn how to evade those detections. Yeah. So with this dynamic, what are the right response to this problem?
I think we see a couple of problems here. So one is like, what do we really expect from the students? So we
Okay.
need to look at the learning outcomes, right? And how we can achieve or help students achieve those learning outcomes.
Okay.
That would be, I
So
think,
redesigning the assessments, you mean?
yeah, some of it
Okay.
definitely. So, for example, there's different ways you can prove certain skills or that you gain certain knowledge. But we would need to say, okay, what do you need to know? What is that you have to do or be able to do to be prepared, for example, for your future? So after all, universities are advancing this knowledge, helping students to develop skills for a particular purpose. Right? At a business school, that we want to develop people with leadership capabilities, entrepreneurs, people who can start their own business, people who can lead a business or be specialists in certain areas. So there's a question, to what extent we prepare students
Okay.
for either independent work or taking jobs in big corporations. And now there's a question, now what skills do they use? And definitely, being familiar with different AI technologies is one of them, right? So I think initially we've seen a rise of new profession like prompt manager. So people who are good at prompting, could get those very well-paid jobs. Now a lot of companies just purchase licenses for different tools, and they integrate them into very much the ecosystem of the tools that they have at the workplace. So definitely our students should be familiar and should be experts in use of different AI technologies. The only thing I'm really concerned about is whether development of those skills would come at expense, for example, of some ethical principles. So
Okay.
again, but it's nothing new here, right? We could see, for example, we were training students how to achieve, lower cost,
Lower
highest income for a company. That's important, but you cannot do this when with disrespect for humans, for human dignity, maybe for privacy, for any core elements of what is important for and the core elements of well-functioning, healthy human society, right? So in the same way, like there's a danger that we can train students in very effective use of AI technologies. We need to do it in such a way that they will be using them, again, always remembering that every decision that we make has some ethical dilemma in it.
Okay.
And it's important to do those decisions in such a way that would be basically for the common good, for the future. So absolutely, yes, an encouragement to use. But just like any other tools or technologies, they have to be used in a responsible way. And we learn together with our students what that is. What does it mean in specific context? The ethical principles are pretty much the same. We need to reinterpret them to guide students in this new environment.
Okay, but the environment today is very dependent to AI also, and AI has also give many productivity to small medium enterprises, also students who are working with small and medium enterprises, right? just like what I said in our classes, the classes that we teach here, some students have projects that is collaborating with small and medium enterprises across Jogja, across our city. And then they help those small and medium enterprises to create marketing content, but using AI tools, of course, due to the limited of budget. So in other ways, they are actually increasing productivity. They are helping the community actually in some way, right? To be more competitive in terms of business.
Absolutely. So it's a direct and great effect.
It is, yeah. There is a positive effect of that. But is there any downturn to that?
I think, it depends. Like you showed a great business case and I give you an academic response to it. So of course it depends, how it was developed. But you're saying, that was developed together with us entrepreneurs. So I think everything was voluntary with mutual consent. Intellectual property was respected. So I think it's actually one of the promises of the use of modern AI technologies is that a lot of for example, as you said, capabilities in creating marketing content, copywriting, visuals, video, websites, social media posts can be generated quickly at a low cost, and it's benefiting small businesses or single entrepreneurs.
All right, let's do a case study here. Okay, imagine my students collaborating with a small and medium businesses here in Jogja. Let's say they are selling fried chicken, and then they don't have good packaging. They don't have good advertisement in their social media, and then our students generates a packaging design for that particular shop through ChatGPT. ChatGPT designs that, and then when my students give them to that entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs liked it, and then he decide to create the packaging, like go to the package creators and then show them the pictures, and then they design the packaging exactly the same like what ChatGPT is designing. Does that violate any copyrights in your opinion?
So I'm not an expert on Indonesia law, so
oh,
you
okay.
need to probably ask
All right, so
a local lawyer.
So not copyright law, but okay. So in an ethical form, then is it something ethical to do?
So very different ways of looking at it, but what we see here is definitely great collaboration between academia and industry. We, as you mentioned, it's a small business, so we see how a public university is benefiting the community by helping local businesses to be more productive, more efficient, more effective. So I can see definitely a great positive social effect. It's also great learning for the students. So I think entrepreneur in this case gave students a lot of insight into the business. And it's a win-win situation because students learn about problems of real businesses. So when they will be starting their own business, they can learn from this case study and they will remember that project. And the entrepreneur got something from them. And AI here, in this particular case, help very much to make this more productive. I'm assuming that fried chicken is good, right? Not everyone would agree on it, but we can have a separate discussion. How good is fried chicken for your health?
Because in one way that design has been something luxurious in the past, like 3 or 4 years ago, only businesses who have a very big capital can have great designs. But now, like everyone can have great designs through those AI tools, right? So then the question that we can move forward then, is it something legal to do? Is it something acceptable to do? Is it something that is proper to do when you actually use designs that are generated through AI to your business? Right.
Yeah, I see two problems or two questions here. So one is about legal solutions, and that's a question to the government. I think, we as university professors, we can give some input and some suggestions, so people in parliament would make it the law this way or another. It's a regulation, but there's also, let's say, a social aspect of it, and it's also related to collaboration between university and policymakers, because we now know that some of the professions are under a lot of pressure. right? So, for example, graphic designers or translating, interpreters. We may think about people who were educated in coding, and now that machines can do it, what happens with those people? Do they receive a lot of other opportunities? So if you have a talented graphic designer, what happens with them? How can they, I don't know, either change profession or develop something that is still, in the times where generative AI is so popular, also in terms of the graphics, visuals, that they can actually contribute something valuable, make a living of it. So that would be the most important. Also, what happens to people in certain professions which are endangered by new technologies?
All right.
Machines taking over certain jobs.
Okay, so this will be the last question to you. Final big picture question. So in 10 years, how will you look back on this moment? Like, is there a turning point, or will we handle it well as an academician?
I think, as some people are saying, that, like, I've heard this famous sentence that predictions are difficult, especially about future.
Yeah. But as an academics, are we doing the correct thing now?
So I think like 10 years later, I will remember a very nice conversation and probably will be laughing at what we are saying. A lot of people who will be, listening to us and say, oh, like, that was ridiculous. We're saying, or that was so funny. Like maybe, our children will look at it, or future generations say, like, in May 2026, people were saying this. That is so funny. We don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was scary, maybe we overlooked something.
Yeah.
So I think, again, past is gone, future, we don't know. We only have a present. So at present, I think, it's important to live this moment, the best we can.
Okay.
And we know ethical principles. We know what works. We need to learn more about both benefits and dangers.
Okay.
And also look at, like, apply ethical principles to everything what we do. Be aware of ethical dimension of our decisions.
So self-awareness is very important.
And also learning. So as you said, like, you said, maybe it's costly and takes time to read the terms of use, but it's so important, right? Then you can distinguish which companies offer you solutions which very much respect, and if you use those technologies, those companies will flourish. And those technologies will become mainstream, maybe. So that's something very important, to be careful, to learn, educate yourself, whatever consequences of what we do, but also the process of making. And then, 10 years from now, if someone shows, okay, you've made a mistake, you can still say, well, in given circumstances, I tried my best, to make a response, to use it in a responsible way.
All right. Okay.
So we say hello to the future.
Hello to the future. Okay, Dr. Lemański. So this has been such a rich conversation that we have with you. So thank you so much for bringing such a deep discussion here about the use of AI in education. So it's very much appreciated. My pleasure. Thank you so much. And I hope we stimulated some of the discussion and thinking, in our students. And you have to share your class design, and your educational design. Okay, because we can talk great. During lunch after this. We have to. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for everyone's attention, and thank you so much for watching this podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you.